So when we talk about controlling, confounding, I like to think of it as pre-game and post-game. So pre-game, you're setting up your team, and you have these options: matching, restriction, and randomization. And a way that I remember these three is Matt rests under the dome. Not perfect, but if it helps you remember this, then that's great. So I went over the pregame. Now as for the postgame, we got our analysis, and we can stratify or we can do statistical modeling. So I'm going to go over these three first: matching, restriction, and randomization. So when we're doing matching, ideally, we are evening out our groups. So we have a control and we have a case group. So say, for example, we have a control group of non-obese and a case group of obese. And we're measuring the incidence of stroke in both groups. Well, there's something called age. Which, if you increase age, you increase obesity, the incidence of obesity. But when you increase age, you also increase the incidence of stroke. So when you match, you're going to have equal numbers of young and elderly in each group. Now on to restriction. Oh boy. So restriction is restricting the study to the population that is non-confounding. Meaning, in other words, you're excluding a subgroup that confounds. So for example, if you have a study where you are taking alcoholics or people who drink a lot of alcohol as your case group, and people who don't consume alcohol, so teetotalers, is your control, and you are measuring the incidence of gouty arthritis. So you're measuring gouty arthritis. However, there's something called sex. So, if you're a female, you're going to have a decreased incidence of alcoholism. There's less alcohol consumed in females, even in those who drink frequently. And you also have the effect of sex on the incidence of gout because of the protective effect of estrogen. So in order to make an effective study, you would exclude the subpopulation of women. So that's your remedy. So you're restricting women from your study. Now on to randomization. Now, randomization is using chance to set up your controlling case. So you're choosing people, hopefully with a large sample size from the population. And when you do that, you're going to get a lot of different combinations of people. And a lot of times when we do studies, there are invisible confounders. So they're invisible because either they're difficult to measure. You might know they're there, but they're difficult to measure, or you just don't know that they're there. Now compare this with matching. Matching, you know exactly what the confounder is and you're deliberately excluding it. In randomization, you're either not sure what the factor is or it's difficult to measure, but you don't know for sure how much you're controlling for it. You just know that if you have a randomized study and you have a large sample size, you are effectively almost eliminating these invisible or hard to measure confounders. Now on to stratification. So stratification sounds a lot like matching, almost, because what you're doing is you're taking the confounding factor and you're organizing your study results by that confounding factor, and you're looking for a risk. So the example I gave of age, working on obesity and incidence of stroke at the same time but separately. Not the same time, meaning it has an independent effect on obesity and an independent effect on stroke. So if you have a study measuring the incidence of stroke on obese patients, you want to stratify by age. So when we talk about stratification, we are creating strata, which are subdivisions of our confounder. And these subdivisions are quantifiable. So for example, the age example I gave, with age being a confounder, you might see stratified analysis where age is divided up into decades. So here's 70, 60, 50, 40, etc. And the risk is calculated within each. And the strata are created. So this is just, very rough example, but the strata are actually created so that the effect of the confounder is minimized. So it's a very dynamic process, stratification. And we're going to talk now about modeling. So modeling is what you would use if you have more than one or two confounders. So if you have more than one or two confounders, you'll go to a multivariate analysis, which would allow you to look at multiple 3 or 4 or more confounders. An example is, in this you use basically what is already known about the confounders in question. And you use that to regress or do a regression analysis of the data for all of the confounders that you're looking at. And you've reached the end of my lecture. Please subscribe.